appreciate it. Appreciate you coming. Tough to go through a year like that. I was just fortunate to be a freshman along for the ride. All right, well, it's 4:15. Mr. Reader, we ready to roll? All right, well, thank you all for coming today. We do have it's a fairly short agenda, but we do have some guests here today. Lockton is here, Matt Tritz and Katie Boland from Lockton are here. We appreciate them being here. They're gonna go through just a couple of things as we look at our insurance for fiscal year '25, and share a few items with you. So I'm gonna turn it over to them and let them take it from here.
Okay, thank you.
And I will put up on the screen too, but I think everybody has handouts.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate the invite to come and just give you a little update on plan performance, mainly spending most of the time talking about the medical plan, but have been privileged enough to work with the school district now for 4 or 5 years, and it's been fantastic, so thanks for continued partnership there. So I'm going to let Katie kick this off and run through the renewal overview, and there's no bad questions. Feel free to shoot them at us if you got questions about any of the material we go through here or just health insurance in general. It's complicated, and as we know, it's expensive. So this is just a summary, and you may have other questions that aren't on the page, but feel free to just shoot them out here, and we'll do the best we can to help you out. So with that, why don't you go ahead?
So as Matt mentioned, I'm Katie Boland. So what you have in front of you is primarily the medical insurance, how the plan's running, what we're looking for the next plan year beginning in July. So on page 2, we have the renewal overview. So what this essentially means is the current lines of coverage or the current benefits that you have available to you and when they are up for renewal. So when they were initially negotiated, at what point in time are they coming up for renewal? So anything bolded you see there on the page is up for renewal this year. So the top being the medical and pharmacy, the administrative fee. So what the partnership that St. Joe has with Blue Cross, you pay an administrative fee for them to administer the claims. St. Joe pays the claims themselves. So right now we're in the second year of a 3-year rate guarantee. The upcoming plan year for 24-25 has had a proposed rate cap of 3%. With the renewal that we received, and we'll go through that actually on the next page, we got a 2.5% increase. So it came in below what they had initially expected us or offered us with that 3%. And then also the stop loss. So that is essentially excess insurance for individuals. So if you have an individual on the plan who has high cost claimants, if they're undergoing cancer treatment and they incur or they have a certain amount of claims every year, this insurance kicks in to help protect the plan. So they'll be cut off at a certain level, and anything above that will be paid by this stop loss carrier. So that is currently undergoing a marketing effort right now. So we're looking at that, taking it out to other carriers and saying, can you give us a better deal on the rates that we have based upon how the plan is running?
And we were very fortunate with that last year.
Yes.
It came in very low. I would be shocked if it comes in that good again, but.
Yep. Yeah, Blue Cross actually gave us an initial renewal at 12.5%. So what we've included in the projection in a couple slides is that placeholder. So the worst case scenario, what we didn't anticipate. And then we're going to go out to the market, or we are out to the market and saying, okay, what can you give us? And then we'll use that to negotiate with Blue Cross as the incumbent to give them the last look. Yeah. And then anything else on the page there that's not bold is up for renewal in a future year. So you can see the products for dental and vision, your life insurance, your disability insurance, EAP and things like that. So those are not being discussed this year primarily for renewal purposes.
I do want to make a comment about BenX Express. That's, we went to that last year for the first time. That's our open enrollment person or whatever. They manage that for us. And the feedback we got from employees was that was a much improved process this year. So that was a good move for us, we felt like.
Yeah, positive. So moving to page 3, this is diving a little bit deeper into the Blue Cross renewal. So as I'd mentioned, there was that 3% rate cap. Blue Cross came in at a 2.5% increase to the administrative fees and the network access fee. And then in the blue box on the far right, that little blue box, wellness stipend. So annually, St. Joe receives a $50,000 wellness stipend to use as you're choosing for any wellness-related expenses. And I know we use that full amount every year, so that's greatly appreciated by Blue Cross, or from Blue Cross. And then an implementation stipend of $38,000. So any new vendors that you're putting in that would require a file feed or any initial costs that they would incur, you can use that to offset those costs. And the table below is just showing an annualized amount of what those admin and network access fees would be. So looking at the table starting from the left, in the rows we're looking at total current to total renewal, and then moving to the right, so the first column is showing the admin fees. So your total current admin fees based upon your current enrollment as of January's claims experience. We're looking at $437,000 is what St. Joe is currently paying. With that 2.5% increase, it's roughly an $11,000 or $11,000 increase annually to cost. So totaling $448,000.
And when will that be effective?
7/1, July 1st.
And it won't be 11,000%.
Not 11,000 fit, thankfully. That is for sure. Same for the network access. So as of current enrollment today, you're paying $184,000 in network access fees. With that 2.5% increase, $4,600, totaling for effective July 1st, you'd be paying $188,000. And then on the far right column, the pharmacy credit. So this increase is actually a really good increase. We want to see the pharmacy credit increasing. So this is money coming back to the plan that you're receiving in the form of a per member per month credit. So right now you're receiving a little over $1 million in credits annually. With that 2.5% increase, we'll see about $24,000 increase annually for that.
And what creates the pharmacy credit?
Great question. So with pharmacy, I thought you should make shot nodding your
Oh,
head.
everybody asks about pharmacy.
Yeah.
It's really hot topic
Yes.
right now.
Usually that doesn't,
No, pharmacy is not cheap.
yeah.
So
We could
with-
have a whole meeting on
Oh, yeah.
this.
Is it 340B?
No, no,
That's a thing,
It is a
but
thing.
not for this plan.
Yeah. So primarily with specialty drugs, specialty drug manufacturers give what they call rebates. So for the total cost of a drug, based upon the contract that you have with the PBM, in this case it's Optum Rx, they would say for this specific drug, we're going to give you X amount of dollars back based on how many members use the drug. So depending upon utilization, you would get a certain amount of money back. The arrangement that you have with Blue Cross, they're not giving rebates back on a per drug basis. They're estimating what the rebates would be, and then they're giving it back to you in the form of a credit. So rebates in the traditional sense are typically paid quarterly, 90 to 100 days after the close of the quarter. So they're evaluated on that quarterly basis, and then you're seeing that from a cash flow perspective much later, so it's not as advantageous. In this instance, the pharmacy credit, you're seeing it up front, and it's hitting the plan immediately. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, this structure, it is unique, right? Because like Katie said, the brand rebates, usually you're getting, I shouldn't say usually, one alternative structure would be you would get X amount of dollars based on specific drug, right? And then that rebate is whatever it is. And you don't get it unless somebody actually goes and gets the prescription filled. So Blue Cross does it a little different. They look at utilization basically over the last 12 months, and they kind of make an estimate on what the total rebates would be. And they choose to offer that up in the form of a per employee per month credit, which for you guys is like $42.
Yep.
that comes off your admin fee. And so pros of this is, you know what it is. It's that amount every month, it's easy to budget, and it comes right off your admin cost. Perhaps not as transparent, they're a little bit at risk. I mean, your utilization could change, and they may not collect as much in rebates, right? So they're underwriting for that. I'm not one, I'm pretty sure Blue Cross isn't losing money, insurance companies make money, so they're hedging their bet a little bit. So it's got pros and cons, and every structure does have pros and cons. This one is transparent. We monitor, I guess, pricing and have them bid it, you know, when we did bid this last year,
In 2021.
2021. So when that goes out, we compare it against other pharmacy benefit managers in the market, and this is competitive. When it's time to bid it again, I'm sure that will go up, given the nature of pharmacy and how those costs are increasing. So it's, there's pros and cons to each structure out there. This one is just a guaranteed cost structure, and you have transparency with it. So it's a competitive model.
Seems to be benefiting us, though.
Yeah, I mean, like any structure, you never really know the full price of the drug, right? You never really know what that is or how much of those rebate dollars Blue Cross is getting. So like on average, we would say in this type of carved-in arrangement, because this is, you know, Blue Cross says this is their default PBM is Optum. They would only really allow you to go to one other one because they don't integrate with anybody else, so they kind of hold you captive. Let's say that they're keeping 15% of the rebates and they're giving you back 85%. That would be a fair assessment. You're not getting 100% of the rebates, I know that for sure, but I bet you're getting about 85, give or take.
Plus, this allows us, though, to know. We
To know
we
exactly how much we're
exactly,
gonna give,
yeah.
yeah.
But you know, it's guaranteed and it's in here, and it's not dependent on utilization, so that part is
Yeah.
good. But we'll never really, even in a different structure where you're paid per drug, that PBM or carrier is still keeping a portion of it, or you're never gonna get 100%.
Yeah.
It's gonna be up, down, up, down.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is-
so
yeah,
it's
this is
a
good.
competitive structure. We like to get that credit up.
Yeah.
We know there's room in there,
Mhm.
so we negotiate on your behalf.
Any other questions on the medical specifically?
I'll have a question, because the next bit's on the next page.
Yeah.
Well, you
Go for
mentioned, you mentioned the 12.5%.
Yes.
So then I look for the 12.5%.
Yep, so if you're on page 4, and looking at the projection there, it's about midway through the table when you see stop loss costs.
Yeah, I mean, I did see that.
Yeah.
When, what's the annual? It says that the net result of that costs $1 million.
You're paying
12% is $1 million.
12% increase from what it currently is. So right
Oh, so
now,
it was
900.
900,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah. So it went, where you see 6166 PEPM,
Yeah, I see, yeah.
current would be 5395.
And the RX rebate is what you just covered on the previous page?
yes. So this projection here is looking at what we would predict the 24-25 plan year to cost in its entirety. So beginning July 1st, 2024, running all the way through June 30th of 2025, where do we expect those costs to be? Based upon a number of factors, based upon what we know with the increase in the administrative fee of the 2.5%, based upon the assumed increase for the stop loss of the 12.5%, and then that RX rebate or the RX credit of the 2%. With the, looking at a projection this far in advance, so we've included 17 months of trend. You'll see that at the top there before we look at the numbers at the bottom. So what this means is there's not a lot of actual data. So we're using your actual data and then we're applying trend to it. So the more of your actual data that we get, the more credible that the projection is. So essentially, this could change a lot in the next 12 months. So
We're projecting all the way out, like through
17 months.
June of 2025.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going out a long ways.
Yep. So as it breaking down the projection, within the projection for the total plan cost, which you see in the blue, rolled up into that is everything above it. So your incurred claims projection, this is your medical and pharmacy. There is an asterisk next to this because Lockton uses 7% medical trend and 10% pharmacy trend. This is what we're seeing national averages, so based upon what increases we're seeing, 7% for medical and 10% for pharmacy. The admin fee, plus the network access, plus the stop loss, taking out the RX rebates, and HSA seating. So this would be, if anyone is enrolled in the high deductible health plan and receiving that HSA seed from the district, that is the total cost, so $1.4 million. The variable copay solution program, which is a pharmacy program through Blue Cross, costs 23 cents per member or per employee per month. And then PCORI tax, which is an annual tax that self-insured, which is what you all are, employers must pay. So all of that taken into account on a per employee per month basis is $987.16 is total plan cost. When we annualize it, it comes out to be $16,169,000 roughly. Compared to current funding, so what you're budgeting right now for the plan cost, the 987 compared to current funding of 978, we would estimate a deficit of about 136,000, or a little less than 1%.
Which we can handle right now. We're in very good shape. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not
we're
much.
sitting, we're
No.
sitting, we're sitting at a little over 6 million
Yeah.
right now.
That's really good.
Well,
6 million
so,
in reserves.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things on this page, there's a lot of numbers there, but for just kind of frame of reference, right, and how we look at, is a plan structured right, and are the costs, in line with benchmark, so self-funded plan, right, so you guys are paying the claims out of your reserves, but you're paying a fixed cost. So fixed cost mean the admin fee from Blue Cross, the network access fee from Blue Cross, the stop loss premium, like those are fixed costs. So if you take those costs and compare them to the total plan cost, 16.1 million, the fixed cost total is like 1.6 million. So that's like 10% of your total plan cost is fixed, and that's a good number. Like if you're around somewhere 10, 12% on a fixed cost of your total, that's a good benchmark number to be at. So that's good, and then considering we're backing out $1 million in rebates, it's kind of washing out for the moment, washing out that $1 million of stop loss, so you're even a little bit less in fixed. So just one frame of reference I'd like to look at, and it's not on this page, but if you were to take the total plan cost, 987.16, and kind of multiply that by 12, right, because that's a per employee per month. But if you multiply that by 12, you get a per employee per year. Like how much does it cost per year on average? That's like $11,700, which a benchmark right now is about $13,000. So you're running below a benchmark. So
Being self-insured.
well, one reason, right, because it's more margin and fully insured. But the last few years, this plan has performed better than expected
Exceptionally better.
and better than benchmark. So you're below what I would call an average cost benchmark on a per employee per year basis at 11.7. That's a below benchmark cost.
And this is employee only, it's not family.
That's just all together.
Together.
It's everybody. It is family.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Is
that's
there any participation by the participants? Do they pay any portion of that?
Yes, if they do anything beyond just employee, there's a cost for them. They can add spouse, they can add children, they can add
But for
family.
their costs, that's a full benefit, they get the
Yes.
full benefit.
And I consider it a Cadillac plan. I mean, it's a darn
It is-
good plan.
I think that's, we've actually have talked a little bit about this, and probably don't do a good enough job of letting our employees know how good
How
their
good it is.
benefits
I
are.
remember when we first went self-insured and put out the plan, and man,
And
compared to
we've,
most plans, it's a Cadillac.
and we've
plan.
continued to add some additional things. They've got some notes on there about TRIA, so we're adding some things about some chronic condition management. but we're doing it in a smart way. TRIA is giving us a guaranteed ROI. We have something called Smart Shopper that's gonna be an added benefit next year that we actually have been looking at for 20 months probably, and now Blue Cross has said, oh, yeah, we wanna put that in and we wanna give you an ROI on that. So some of the things that we are putting in that are helping us keep our costs down, and Lockton's been great, they've really helped us with this process, but we've done things to add benefits for staff while keeping our costs down, and I think part of those benefits we've added actually have encouraged staff to access some things, to stay healthier, to, you know, not end up in the ER, not end up with serious multiple chronic conditions and things like that. So we've tried really to promote preventative health, if that makes any sense, to keep people from, you know, like I said, the last place we want to see people end up is the ER from both a human and a financial place. So, yeah, they've been great help to us. Something else on there I wanted to note too, our deductible is gonna go up to $3,200 and $6,400 from $3,006, and that's because the IRS has changed their guidelines. It's for us to remain in an embedded plan, which we could try to explain that, but it gets way into the weeds.
Katie
For us,
can explain.
but for us, I don't want Kate to explain it, 'cause but for us to stay within the IRS guidelines, and we discussed that with the insurance committee, and they felt comfortable that that $200 and $400 increase on deductible for individual and family, they felt like as a committee, they were comfortable with that for us to remain in that embedded piece and remain within IRS guidelines. We can become a non-embedded plan, but there are some other challenges and things with that too. So they felt it made more sense just to go ahead and stay with the IRS guidelines and remain an embedded plan when we brought it to the committee.
And still keep our employees free. I mean, we're not charging our employees for insurance.
We are not recommending adding any costs. The plan will, you know, this deficit, if we wanted to get back to zero, obviously we could go to either employees or we could go to the board and ask them to fund it at a higher rate. We're not gonna ask to do that right now. We are, we think, in a good position, and we have some good reserve built up there.
Yeah, so part of our job is a little bit, and this is part, nobody likes the insurance consultant guy, right? Because this is all pretty good news. Robert, what's the reserve at right now?
Just a little over $6 million, and I'll
Okay.
actually talk about that, yeah, here in just a little bit.
Just food for thought, right, on this one. So history of
6.6 million, actually.
6.6, so that's good. The next page kind of shows a it's hard to look at 1 year at a time, right? So we just put a couple of years on here to show you how the plan's been trending the last few years. And I mean, you're just 3%, 4%, 3% drug, 4% on medical since 2020-21 plan year, right? Which is really, really good. And so the skeptic in me, you know, that's way below normal. And this kind of ties into the reserve conversation, and we won't settle this today, but if you're thinking about the point of a reserve, right, is to maintain viability of the plan, and then when you have a bad year, maybe you can use a little bit of that to smooth that increase out, right, for your employees. It doesn't take too long. I mean, the 16 million is a big plan, and 6.5 is a nice reserve. It doesn't take too long to really chip into that a little bit. So I'm not making a recommendation or a proposal, I'm just kind of looking around the corner a little bit, and maybe for next year, trying to think about like, what do we feel, what do we like from a reserve amount to feel good about that makes sense, and not too much money in a reserve, but has enough, so if we have a couple of bad years in a row, which could happen, like I've seen this happen, where we still have ability to kind of smooth out the payroll deduction piece, right, and kind of weather the storm through some of those what could be tougher times. So while 6 million is nice, you know, I really advise to try to keep an eye on like an almost 12-month reserve is a really safe number. I'm a little conservative by nature, but.
Matt's really, really conservative. He
Yeah,
likes to
I'm
rein
a
up
little
my parade
conservative,
sometimes.
but I just like you guys to be in a spot where if we do need to kind of weather some financial difficulties, or we got a bad year, or 2 or 3 things happen at the same time, we can really smooth that out right for your staff, and not impact them as much, just if we happen to have a bad year. So that's just, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but even you can see our projection for next year. She talked about trend. I mean, medical trend is 10%, drug trend is higher than that. The market, as far as price increases for healthcare, is not going down. Like, it's not going down.
Well, and you guys, I'll just say, you guys had negotiated a really good deal for us with Blue Cross Blue Shield, with having guaranteed rates for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then the maximum of 3% in this upcoming year. So we've been flat and gonna be a 2.5% increase when we know, I think the city's health insurance last year went up 12% or something like that. That's more in line with what the industry standard has been, so we've been fortunate, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So just a little something to think about, as you guys have more meetings and committee meetings and things like that, about where you might like that to be.
And just one other anecdote, as we talk about where the plan is supposed to end come this June 30th. Right now, through claims experience through January, you're at about running at 92% of funding. So what that means is there's 7% surplus, or about $650,000 right now. So there's still 5 months left to go in the plan year.
and we've talked about this in the past, the HSA and the EPO, or excuse me, the PPO are both running. I don't have the end of February numbers yet, but those have all been running at a positive funding ratio, where the EPO has run at a negative funding ratio, but we've had them look at it actuarially. We talked about possibly removing that at some point. Still doesn't make sense from an actuarial standpoint, which sounds counterintuitive, but that's something we'll continue to keep an eye on. But right now, those other 2 plans are kind of subsidizing that EPO, but we do have the smallest number of employees in the EPO of the 3 plans as well, so.
Okay.
Great. Well, moving to page 6, so this is just showing the current plan designs, and then the proposed plan design for 24-25 for the high deductible that Robert was giving the explanation on as to why that's increasing per the IRS regulations. So as you can see, the individual for the high deductible is increasing to $3,200 and family is increasing to $6,400, so just times 2, which is what it currently is at $3,000, $6,000. And then the out-of-pocket maximum, just to keep consistencies, will also slightly increase by $200 for individuals, so $4,200, and then on family to $8,400. Right now it's the $4,800, just to keep consistent. But everything else with the EPO and PPO, there are no changes. And then on the last page, on page 7, we just included your current contributions and enrollment for the 3 plans. And as it sounds from what Robert is saying, there's not a proposed increase to contributions, so this is what potentially will be 24-25 contributions.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make that recommendation to
Yeah.
you. I think if we run what projections are and have a $165,000 deficit, I think we're okay to stay what we are. I don't, there's 2 parts of that. Number 1, the healthcare trust has some reserves right now. Our operating account and everything, I know there's going to be a push for us to put as much into salaries and everything as we can, and we likely are going to deficit spend next year anyway. And so I don't want to add any more onto the board adding contributions, nor do I want to put it on employees to have to pay more right now when it's within 1% of being fully funded. I don't have the stomach to make that recommendation right now, so.
I think it's smart.
It matters, again, one other quick question,
Yeah.
I don't want to slow us down. The one thing you didn't really talk about was the 9% increase on the incurred claims projection.
Yep. So everyone, we're on page 4, looking at that projection. So this is just based upon what I had mentioned with the trend, so the 7% and the 10%, that 9 is a blend of those two. So we're taking your current claims and applying that blended trend number to get an incurred claims projection for what we would estimate it to be in
So we're
2025.
taking a regional trend, a norm. It's not based on your actual plan performance. Like if we used your plan performance, we'd be putting 3% in there.
Yeah.
We can't do that. It's not credible. We've got to use what's happening with healthcare inflation in the market. Hopefully you beat that. If I can kind of connect a couple points, like she mentioned earlier, your plan's running at like 92% of expected, so a little bit better this year. And this page shows we're projecting 9% trend, and we're gonna finish, you're currently budgeting, well, you're 8% under. We're projecting you're gonna eat up all that surplus next year with this trend. And I would just call this projection this isn't conservative or aggressive, it just is what it is. Here's the trends in the market, so we take that trend and just apply it to your claims going forward.
But our last 4-year trend is 4%.
Right,
That's right.
We've been beating the trend.
yep.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
That's for us to continue to beat the trend
yeah.
too. so.
You have been beating it, there's no doubt, and that's the part of my job that says it won't last forever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Matt or Katie?
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of, our good numbers happen to be that we've been lucky. We've been lucky with claims, and we haven't had
Well-
10 people get cancer and stuff like that.
I mean.
Well, our stop loss coverage is there as a safety net in case we have people with that, so. That stop loss insurance protects us in case we would have people who would have large medical claims.
I think you have a good design. I think your plan design is good. You've got a significant portion, almost half enrolled in your Blue Saver high deductible health plan. And that's working for them, right, from a plan design perspective. So maybe you're beating the norm. Your utilization is a little low. I don't have all the data on like utilization metrics per 1,000. But I think it's a little bit more than luck that goes into that. I'd like to explain it with demographics of your plan, maybe a little bit younger group. Plan design is really good, would be some things I would point to.
Is why we were in these numbers.
Yeah.
As opposed to being a little bit lucky.
Correct.
Yeah, kind of what I'm saying, like, it doesn't last forever. I mean, some
Right,
years
that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
We're lucky now, but we could be in bad luck tomorrow, right?
you could, fair enough.
So, the other thing is, I was asking, I'm wondering about, when I see the cost here for employees, seems very reasonable, when you took a spouse or children, comes quite high. And I don't know this, I haven't worked for the bank for 20 years, so we always have good plans and stuff like that. Is that for an employee and a spouse, $929, $830, $554, is that kind of in the box as far as the rest of the industry out here? Employees
Yeah.
being covered on insurance?
I would say in K through 12, it's pretty common where you subsidize really heavy on employee only, kind of like you're seeing, and then you still have the rest of the cost, right? And you've got to spread that out with the other tiers. So I don't see anything out of the ordinary in comparison with other K through 12 plans on how you guys are proposing, like what the payroll deduction is going to be. I think that's your answer. You're really incentivizing, if you have maybe a dual income family, an employee working here and somebody working somewhere else, you're really encouraging them to do the math, right, and see if it makes sense for the other spouse to take a plan somewhere else, which sometimes it does, right? So,
Within the industry then of education, we're in the box,
yeah,
but then I guess you can't compare oranges and apples. I'm talking about manufacturing type of things. I guess they would have a higher rate of injury and things compared to people in the education field.
well, utilization, you mean just like going to, like doctor
Would their
visits?
rates be higher than, you know what I'm saying, depending on what business you're insuring?
Demographics matter, right? Yeah, so age, gender
Yeah.
of the group definitely matters.
And I think if you go look on the open market to just go to add your spouse, if, you know, any of these plans to have you and your spouse or you and a child, that jump is significant from just an individual to adding others as well too, so.
Okay, that's just what I was.
Yeah, good question.
We're involved.
Anything else? All right, yeah, thank you guys so much. You're
You want us
you're
to hang
welcome
around?
to stay or you're welcome to leave. I'm happy if you want to stay.
Well, we'll hang around.
Yeah.
All right. Next item, we'll take a look at the financials. Through February, the end of February, we're at about 67% of our fiscal year at that point. Our operating budget is, the expenditures are at 68% of the budget, and the overall, we're at 63.8% of the budget for expenditures. So we're in a good position there where we thought we'd be. We will be bringing a budget amendment to the board in April. We think some of those expenses are coming in lower than we had anticipated. I don't want to give anybody a number now, but our original budget was a $7 million deficit spending. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong on these. The first amended budget we brought you was a $4 million. I think, optimistically, I think we're going to be closer to under $2 million for a deficit spend this year. So much improved from where we were, what we thought initially. I will tell you the biggest area that is making that up is in salaries, and that is because of positions we've not been able to hire. So we budgeted for them, but we just haven't been able to hire all of them. So,
Dr. Seegers?
yes, ma'am.
So the tax issue that we had that had come in lower than we had originally planned for revenue, was that rate was gonna be effective for 2 years or just one?
I think it was just timing.
Yeah, it's just
Last month.
timing, yeah, that our revenues were down last month.
No, I mean, sorry,
That's okay.
I've had like mini strokes probably. Okay, so back in the summer when you guys were putting the budget together, which you didn't know what that tax rate was gonna be.
Our assessed valuation
Yeah,
came in lower, yes.
And so is that in effect for 2 years? Do I remember that?
Yes and no. So reassessment only happens every 2 years.
Listen, you gotta scoot back so you can see what your friends are doing. Because you're going, no, she's like.
So the reassessment,
Uh-huh.
that happens every 2 years, so the only thing that we would be able to add to assess valuation next year is new construction.
Mhm.
So yes, it impacts us for 2 years, because they only reassess every 2 years.
Okay.
But your tax rate, which Elgin Hurt helps us evaluate, could change depending on.
Yeah,
See
what we
you
set our levy at,
Right,
yes, that
okay.
could change.
And then the other question I had about that was something. Go on.
Okay, yeah. So expenditures have increased as a whole about 7.69 million at this point from last year. The areas where that really is coming in, salaries and benefits, 3.57 million. Purchase services, I feel like I sound like a broken record every month because they're kind of the same areas. Purchase services, we've talked about, those are up 3.9 million. That would be with our contracted SPED, our contracted ECSE, occupational therapy, things like that. And then something that really hasn't popped up as much, but we did notice this month, sub-costs are up $330,000 this year. So our sub-costs are up significantly. Supplies are up 1.18 million. Some of that is some ESSER purchases in early childhood, things that we planned and budgeted and are using up the last of that ESSER money because this is the last year for any ESSER money. But our food costs are up in nutrition services as they are for everybody. And then we have some increased maintenance costs this year as well. Revenues, our state revenue is down 3.01 million at this time. I think this is really due to a delay in, DESE had a big delay on the early childhood funding, releasing those funds. We expect to get a $3.02 million payment in March, which would essentially wipe out that 3.01 million that we're down right now. And our tax revenue was up 3.1 million at this time compared to last year. So So we're running about where we think we should be, but again, we'll be bringing back an amended budget in April for the board, so, which would give us a much more accurate picture for what the end of the year will look like.
I remember my question now.
Yep.
Okay, so have you guys heard any update on what's going on with the House bill that could freeze, the county commissioners could freeze the tax payments for seniors?
Yeah, that is probably going to get tested on the east side of the state. It's probably gonna end up in court
Okay.
eventually. There won't be a lawsuit filed until some taxing entity actually sees a loss of funding.
Okay.
Um,
Well, as long as they started out there.
Yeah, yeah. And that will be, you know, a decision our commissioners will have to make at that point if they want to go that route here as well.
Yeah.
I haven't heard, honestly, the noise about that's died a little bit, because I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what they do over there.
Yeah, and I've heard there was another bill that's been introduced, but there's not really a lot of movement on it, as with everything right now, that was gonna do something that would like cap your rates of how much the increases could be, and there are some things on like used cars and things like that, but.
Yeah, there are multiple bills right now that I get weekly updates from Kevin Supple from OASBO. You know, one is to lower the personal property tax rate from 33 to 31.5. I actually reached out to our assessor, or our assessor last week, and asked him to give me a projection on what that would cost us, and he said they were gonna run some numbers, but I haven't gotten that back. So, yeah, there are not any bills out there to try to really fund us better, I'll put it that way.
There is, but
Yeah.
luckily nothing is happening. So
Yeah,
heard about that
so,
last week.
yeah, lots of arguing in Jeff City, and sometimes, yeah, but it is what it is. But yes, there are quite a few bills that we are keeping an eye on, because the majority of them would have a negative impact on us from a funding standpoint.
Can you, so I think on the legislative partnership call last Friday, they only reported on a couple of them, but they weren't like fiscal in nature. Could you send those to Dr. Edgar, or?
I don't, yeah, I'm not on that call.
No, I know, but like whichever, so we can ask them to track certain bills.
I send that update to Dr. Edgar every week, so,
Okay, I'll ask them.
yeah, he can forward it to the board, absolutely. All right, any other questions about the financials before I talk about the healthcare trust? All right, the healthcare trust, which we've already referenced a little bit, at the end of last month, the balance was a little over 2.5 million, remembering that we have a little, around 3.1 million in investments right now. So we are deciding to use some of that money to actually make a little bit more for us to help us there. There was a timing issue with the payroll last month, so it was short of a payment there. That's caught up this month. So at the end of this month, we're sitting at 3.52 million, and then 3.1 million in investments. So our total is about 6.61 million in the healthcare trust. To give you an idea of how that compares, at the end of February last year, we had 4.82 million. So we are up 1.79 million from where we were at this time last year. And again, that's due to, we've been running at a positive funding ratio. And we started to see some money come in from our investments as well too. So we're seeing a little bit more of that. But right now, we are in a good position financially in the healthcare trust. And so again, going back to, that's why I would not make a recommendation that we change anything from a board funding standpoint or from an employee cost standpoint for insurance right now. Any questions about anything with that?
Just good
I'll
job.
follow back on that.
I got a question backing up just a minute.
Sure.
And I apologize, I just haven't been here for a while, so you gave the update on where we stand, and there were two figures that you mentioned. One was an increase because of teacher salary, 3-point-some million, and the other one was because of services.
Yes.
Which was, and so from a percentage basis, it's a little bit concerning that anything would go up more than salaries, because that's going to be on all of our minds here. Any other cost drivers would be doing that. Is there anything in that services area that says we could work to control that increase?
You know, we're trying on that. Part of the issue is that, because of our inability to staff some positions, if anything, we're probably actually contracting some additional classrooms. Now, at some point, we'll see the flip of that. If I'm not paying 10 teachers in special ed classrooms because I've contracted these out, or 5 teachers and 5 paras, I will see some cost benefit on that, but it's not gonna be a break even. It's gonna cost more with the contract than if we were able to hire. But it's kind of one of those, it's a situation we have to be able to meet the IEPs of students. We have to be able to meet those students' needs. And
It's just a super important thing, though.
Yeah.
It's super important that we're looking for money anywhere we can get that.
Yeah.
And help with teachers.
And Dr. Segers, I know that Dr. Kraus had sent out in his weekly email that I think to date for this point of the year compared to last year, we have like 1,000 more sub requests. So when you're paying for people to be on PTO, which the board increased, so now you're paying for them to be off and they're not here, and then you're paying for 1,000 more subs.
right, which that's where the 330,000 additional sub cost is this year. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll be honest, that's an area that concerns me a lot.
Which is gonna be so important, because we all know that we wanna do something with the teachers. I'm not saying that for any reason other than I believe that's fact. And so any other cost drivers, we've just gotta scrutinize. And I certainly understand your explanation, but I think that's a big enough number. Something doesn't bother me, because that's so straightforward, but
Yeah.
that's a big, big number compared to all the increases we give.
I'd say on average, it's adding about 15 points to my blood pressure on a daily, so.
Well, good.
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
glad.
Yeah,
You're worrying about the right thing.
I'm gonna be utilizing the health insurance more, so it might be a
But, you know,
negative.
that
but-
message needs to go out too. We can't get people to come to our district to fill these positions, so we have to pay a service to be able to find people to come to our district, and that costs us a
Sure.
pretty penny.
The hospital faces.
No, it
the
costs us
same-
way more, huh?
Hospital faces the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
All right, anything else on either the financials or the healthcare trust? Those are good questions, Tom, appreciate it. Last thing on the agenda, we'll go over the board agenda, anything that's on there that relates to us. Just a couple of items on there. One, Nutrition Services had put out their paper vendor RFP, and they'll be making recommendations Monday night at the board meeting. It's a split between 2 of the vendors that had submitted, depending on the items. If I remember right, I think they had 3 or 4 vendors, I can't remember sure, but, and so Martin Brothers and Clayton are who they're gonna be recommending, so some from each, and again, depends on what items they were looking at throughout their bid. 2 other things, well, one is the insurance update, renewal and funding. I don't have to talk about that anymore, but Matt and Katie will come back Monday night for the board meeting and present to the board. And then legal services, our legal services contract is up at the end of June with our current legal provider, and we will be making a recommendation for that new contract that'll start on July 1st, so.
Did you interview?
We did, yes. We had 3 firms that we interviewed, 4 submitted. The 4th one was 70% more than one of the bidders, and we said we'd love to work with them, but it was not fiscally,
Too high.
yeah, so we.
But you did have 3 that were comparable.
We did interview 3, and they were closer in price, but there was still a pretty good gap too,
Mhm, okay.
so yeah.
Are you gonna recommend the incumbent then, is that what you're doing? Or-
We'll make a recommendation Monday night, yeah.
I thought I could get you on that.
You almost did.
Well, I would have asked that too, but good try, Tom.
Next question.
Don't fall for it, don't fall for it.
Very good.
Good try, Tom.
All right, well, that is, and those are the only things I think that probably would relate to us. There will be, this is more from HR, but probably does relate to us a little bit, but also salary schedules to be brought forward for the board to approve Monday night as well. So yeah, I guess it does affect us financially a little bit, but I'm not going to take Dr. Krause's thunder there. That's an HR issue, so. So that's pretty much the things I think would probably involve us in any way Monday night. With that, nothing else on the agenda? Are there any questions from anybody about anything? All right, Mr. Reader, we'd like to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.